Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm joined here today by Grant Dwyer, immigration attorney, who is also an in-house legal counsel here at Visa Franchise. Grant, welcome to the video. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Aladdin. Pleasure to be here.
Today we'll be addressing the 100K fee for the H-1Bs, and we realized that we wanted to take this issue to our heart as Visa Franchise, and our job as Visa Franchise here is to see how we can help you guys to continue staying in the US with the tools that we have at our disposal. And this particular video is exactly about that. Today, I really thought that we would make this video and we would talk about the quote unquote alternatives to H-1B. And what comes to mind, of course, is the O1 visa, the L1 visa, and the E2 visa. And for those who are, from certain nationalities, not India or China, then the EB2 NIW or EB2 or other options will be there. So without further ado, Grant, if you were an employee right now working for a company and you were employed in H-1B, which alternative would you seek?
It's a good question. Each of the alternatives you mentioned have strengths and weaknesses.
Hey, you want to come to the US, get the E2 visa, L1, or straight out a green card? We've been doing this for the past 10 years, and we wrote a book. It's called Own Your American Dream. What is special about this book is that we went back and have spoken to 21 successful applicants who opened up their businesses here and who are continuing to live the American dream. Hear it from them, because they talk about their fears, their mental state, what went wrong, what went right. The entire blueprint is there. You could just buy the book right here. You can just read it and make up your mind. Continue your video.
I'll start with the L1. The L1 visa is designed by the US government with the title Intra-Company Transferee. So the idea behind the L1 is that a United States company and a foreign company have a certain kind of relationship, what they call a qualifying relationship. One is the parent of the other, or their branches. They have a parent subsidiary, parent-child relationship, some type of corporate relationship with shared ownership, right? Shared ownership is important.
Right.
This company has a really valuable employee who is either a manager or executive or has specialized proprietary knowledge in the industry. They want to move this employee from the overseas company to the United States company, right? It's not a perfect fit for someone who's currently in the US under an H-1B because it's designed for a person who has worked 1 out of the last 3 years in the foreign company. It's not going to apply to every H-1B holder, right? There may be someone who's in the United States on an H-1B today who listens to this and says, you know what, going back 3 calendar years, I do have 1 year working overseas for this company, right? They can qualify. They would be transferred technically from the overseas company to the US company as either a manager or executive, an L1A visa, or a worker with specialized knowledge, L1B visa. So it's a life raft that can't take everyone, but it can take a lot of folks, right? It's definitely worth exploring. You mentioned another one of these life rafts, the O1 visa. This is a talent visa, right? It's for people of extraordinary ability, extraordinary talent. The US government, and you can find all this information online on the Visa Franchise website, has a bunch of criteria for how they measure talent. But if you are a worker who feels that you can demonstrate that you have achieved great things in your career, the O1 talent visa may be a life raft for you, right? You mentioned the E2 visa. It's an investor visa. This is also kind of limited by nationality, so it's a harder life raft to get on. For example, India doesn't have the E2 treaty with the United States, but a lot of countries do. Easy to Google. You can find that information online, which countries have the E2 treaty. If you hold one of those passports and you're willing and able to make a substantial investment into a United States business and take ownership of that business, you can get the E2 visa. It's renewable indefinitely, and it's usually given out in 5-year increments. So it's a great visa. You mentioned the EB2 national interest waiver. This isn't even a visa. It's a path directly to a permanent residence, to a green card. All right. It has some pretty high criteria because it comes with a green card. It's for folks who are interested in pursuing a project in the United States that they feel will benefit the United States as a whole. It would be in the national interest of the United States for this project to happen. So that's just a brief summary, but
Right.
there's things out there that we can make work.
Sure. Well, thanks for that, Grant. And I particularly want to spend time on two of these visa options. L1 is really particular. It may or may not apply to, well, all these visas are, but L1, you need to be a part of this big company. If you're like Apple India 2 years ago, right now you're here in San Francisco, maybe Apple could, get you in here with L1, whatever the case may be. But it's not really for everyone. It's pretty particular. But on the other hand, visas such as O1, there's no nationality criteria. There's no backlog. It's you and your achievements and who you are. And I think, and this is what I realize, that a lot of people are looking towards the O1 way. The reason why I want to spend time here is that we here as Visa Franchise, we have a sister company called VF USA LLC, which can act as the agent petitioner for the O1 candidate, which means that you can work for your existing employer and we can also list other potential employers. So you have the option and opportunity to switch contracts, bounce between jobs, so you never have to, leave the country. So that's a very special visa there. But I really want you to shed some light on this criteria part, Brian, because I get to talk to a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, okay, how about O1? What do I need to do? Let me join this organization. Let me join that organization, this association. Let me just do some PR and this and that." Is this something that an H-1B candidate today can just do a little bit of engage in a little bit of effort to sort of like build a quote unquote profile to get their O1s approved, or do you need some really, really, really solid a few of these criterias before you even do engage in such efforts?
I would encourage anyone who's sitting there thinking about this to reach out. I mean, to reach out to Visa Franchise, to reach out directly to you, Aladdin. I think that the answer is always going to be yes, but right. Do you need to have some good, solid, strong evidence? Yes, you do. The government's going to be critical. They're going to scrutinize your application, and they're going to really want to see that your talents are demonstrable. They give you about 8 different ways to prove your talent, and you've got to succeed at least 3 of those. All right. And so you're going to be put to the test, and they're going to want to see hard evidence. But in my experience, when a professional applicant talks with Visa Franchise, maybe engages in what the company calls their Talent Accelerator program, there are ways to bring things out of your resume that are true, that really happened, but maybe are just a little bit buried and need a little bit of polishing, right? So yes, you need to have good, hard facts about your talent. But if you're working with the right team, you can bring those things out and make them stand a little taller than they would otherwise.
Cool. And we need to clear the air here a little bit because we keep on using the word talent. It is a talent visa, but talent in the sense of an H-1B employee can very well be extraordinarily talented in, let's say, computer science, cybersecurity, in any business related field, right? So suppose that again, Grant, you're an H1, if you're an employee, you have H1B, and you're working for a pretty decent tech firm here in, let's say, Texas. And what criterias you would probably have, and what would be some of the others that you would work on so that within the next 6 months or so you can jump on the O1 bandwagon? Does the
Good
question make
question.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I'm going to do when you call me and want to talk about an O1 visa, and you tell me, hey, I've got an H-1B right now, or I was looking at an H-1 until last week happened, right? I'm going to ask you about your current employment, because one of the most important criteria in this O1 visa application is a phrase the government uses, that you have played a critical role for a distinguished organization. It's kind of a two-parter: critical role and the distinguished organization. So I'm going to talk to you about your employment, and I'm going to try to determine how we can make a credible case that your job title, your role in this company has been critical, right? Maybe we can gather some letters from folks you work with. Maybe we can get a reference from your boss. Maybe we can talk to some customers or clients or people who are competitors in the industry even, who will give us testimonial evidence that your job, Aladdin, has been critical to this company. And then we hit part one. We look at part two. Is this company distinguished? Does it have a reputation? We might look at its share of the marketplace. We might look at its financial returns. There's a lot of ways we can demonstrate that this organization is distinguished. So merely by being an H-1B worker in an important job for a company with a good name, you've got one criteria right there. And remember, you only need three, right? So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. The second thing we're probably going to talk about is your salary. There's a good chance you're being well compensated if you have a good professional job. If we can demonstrate that your compensation is pretty high compared with other folks in your industry, compared with other folks in your geography, we might have a second criteria point right there. The third thing I'll probably want to talk to you about is membership. Do you belong to any professional organizations, any professional groups who have criteria for who can become a member? If you hold any of these memberships, you've got three criteria before we've even gotten off the phone. So there's things we can jump on right there. Some of the other ones that aren't as common in the tech world, in the business world, are things like media. Has the media written about you and your work, right? If they have, if you've been featured in the Wall Street Journal or something, that's great. We're going to use it, right? If you haven't yet, we might talk about whether or not there exist legitimate opportunities for media sources with good reputation to write about what you're doing. Another criteria is whether or not you've served as a judge evaluating the work of others in your field. There are many opportunities. You hear about hackathons, you hear about coding competitions. There might be opportunities we can help pair you with so you can serve as a judge of others in your industry. So there are a few things I bet you have without even knowing you have. And there are other opportunities we can help point you in the right direction. And they're legitimate. I mean, there's nothing below the table going on here. These are legitimate opportunities, and we'll send it to the government and explain exactly how this demonstrates your talent.
Yeah, and that's what I would have done as well. If I'm an H-1B right now, and I know that okay, any day now, my butt could be out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, I need to get onto something, and I need to work on my skills pretty bad. So if my company is a pretty decent company, I'm getting a pretty decent salary, and I have a few achievements here and there, I would just double down and work on my profile and try to get, it would be a personal journey for me. I'd become a better version of myself. You know the movie Mulan, the song Mulan there? We're going to make
Yeah.
a man out of you. I would go into the Mulan mode and try to sort of like, build that profile. Because guess what? I mean, you'll need that. You'll need that here. You'll need it for EB1, you'll need it for EB2, whatever the case may be. If you're coming to the US through a talent route, it's, look at the things that we're mentioning: hackathons, coding competitions, or join an association, membership, and this and that. Can you see and imagine how much value that immigrant is contributing to the society, even getting engaged, even during being engaged in these activities that we call, quote unquote, talent accelerator and profile building. So I think in and of itself, this is a pretty great sort of like and a noble journey to get onto. I wouldn't really see this as something only for the visa. This is for somebody's career growth, and I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, I agree. It's the people we're probably talking directly to here who either hold an H-1B or who were just about to apply for an H-1B. There's a painful transition going on here, right? And there's an evolution that's being required of you that is not always going to be comfortable, right? But as I consider, if I were to imagine myself in that position, as you leave H-1B world and you explore O-1 world, right? There are benefits. There are things that are going to be better. And the first thing that occurs to me is that by definition, when you're in H-1B world, you're part of a lottery. And there's no other way. That's the word the government uses. It's a lottery. There's a random draw. They're not considering merit. They're not considering your achievements. Everyone jumps into the pot and they pull you out with their eyes covered, right? The O1, there's no lottery. It's entirely merit based, right? If you have the extraordinary achievement, if you have the extraordinary talent, you get the visa. It's not capped. It's not with consideration to nationality, and you're not throwing your name into a lottery pick, right? So I think even though the transition from one to the other is kind of frightening and can be painful, there are a lot of foreign workers who may end up as O1s and be far happier to be an O1 than to have to go through the lottery pick, which is completely blind to merit.
Thanks for that, Grant. I mean, we talked about L1, we talked about O1, and I think what we need to touch base on right now is the E2 visa. And in E2 visa is very simple and straightforward, right? I mean, what would be the strategy there, Grant?
Number one, check to see if your country's on the treaty list, right? I know with H-1B, we're talking to a lot of folks who come from India. E2 is not going to fit if the Indian passport's the only passport you hold. So that's the first thing to check. Number two, take take temperature of your finances. The E2 is a money visa, right? What I tell every E2 applicant, and I probably write more E2 visas than any other kind, is that the United States government stands there with its arms crossed and says, we're not sure that we want you here, right? And your job as an E2 applicant is to say, did you see the big pile of money sitting behind me, right? I've got a big pile of money. I'm ready to invest. And big surprise now, guess what the United States government says? They say, oh, I'm sorry, right this way, sir. Come on in, make yourself at home, stick around for 5 years, bring the money, okay? That's the E2 visa. They want to see what they call a substantial investment. Everyone's first question is, what kind of money are we talking, right? How substantial is substantial? It's hard to know exactly. There's no magic number. The US government doesn't say a magic number. Most lawyers will say you want to aim for around 100,000 USD. That's not always necessary. Sometimes applicants are below that and successful. Sometimes they're above it and unsuccessful. So you want to make a substantial investment. You want to be able to trace the history of that money from the overseas bank account into the US and invest it in a business and spend it for the business. I'd be happy to talk with anyone who wants to reach out about the E2 visa. I could talk all day, but it really boils down to the money.
Absolutely. And in strategies, there is very simple and straightforward. It's probably if you have H1B, your spouse is on H2B, or what was the dependent of the H1B,
Yes, that's
H4?
correct. Yeah. And the good thing about the
Yeah.
E2, and while we're on the topic, is the E2 spouse can work anywhere, right? So sometimes there's a strategic decision about, hey, maybe I'm going to make my spouse the E2 applicant, right? And then I get an automatic work authorization. I can continue on with my H-1B company. I don't even need the H-1B. So let's make my spouse the E2 applicant and I'll come in with her.
All right, that seems to be the strategy on the E2 visa, the E2 front. Let's throw the question back at, and I love asking you this question this way, Grant. Suppose that you're an employee, as I was saying, on an H1B visa now. At E2, you're not, your country is not a part of it. You look at O1, looks a little too shiny for you. You know you're not that guy. And L1, there's just not that opportunity. What's left? And I mean, we're really going to have to roll the dice right now
Yeah.
and look at EB2 NIW, EB2, EB3. What are you doing? What would be your next step?
So I'll mention now what the government calls the EB2 NIW. And you'll hear a lot of people just call it the NIW, which stands for National Interest Waiver. Anytime one of these categories starts with the letters EB, it generally means you're applying for a green card. You're shooting for a permanent residence. You're not bothering with these visas anymore. Permanent resident, just like it sounds like, you're permanent. You don't have to renew anything, right? The EB2 NIW is kind of the dreamer's path because it means you got a dream, right? It's not about how much money do you have. It's not about how many accomplishments have you had previously in your career, right? It's not a talent contest. It's about what are you going to do in the future. So if you're an applicant out there who has an idea, who has a project, right? And you believe that this project, if it's run successfully, if it's run by a person like you who knows about the project, who knows what they're doing, this is going to have a national impact on the United States, right? This is your path. What you're going to want to demonstrate is exactly what your project is. I always tell people it's a little bit like an elevator pitch. You should be able to say in about 1 or 2 sentences exactly what you hope to accomplish, right? What is your goal? You should be able to say in about 1 or 2 sentences why this will positively impact the entire United States. If you have those sentences bouncing around your head, I would encourage you, call me, call Aladdin. Our job is to help you make this a reality, right? But if you have one of those big ideas, something you may have been thinking about in the shower for the last 5 years, right? This is the path to make it a reality. And the United States wants you here, and they want you here on a permanent basis because you're going to benefit everybody.
Grant, thanks for that. And we here at Visa Franchise, guys, we're taking this issue to our heart. We have a toolbox of certain things. It's definitely not going to help everybody, but you could be someone who will be able to help and get you on a different visa or even put you on a permanent green card path. You never know. For that, go to visafranchise.com or shoot us an email, fill out the questionnaire, and we'll review it. And if we believe that there's a potential mutual fit, we'll reach out and send you a discovery solution call, and then we'll see what we can do together. That being said, thanks for turning up. Grant, thanks for joining. Take care.
Yeah, Aladdin, anytime. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking more.